Special thanks to podwires.com. Know the latest podcast and job news before others. Coming up next on Explain Why podcast.
Yeah, look, I think there's it's we need to be careful, and we need to be skeptical. Perhaps have a healthy level of skepticism to what we see and read online, and if when you're in conversations with people and they uh, tell you about things that doesn't sound to be completely factual, we need to ask people and ask ourselves as well, where did you get this information from? Where did you hear that? And because we're so bombarded with information all the time, and we hear so many things, read, see so many things, and then sometimes it's hard to just sort of, where did I get that from? Because we've heard it so many times, and things we've heard so many times, and then we just internalize it and think that this must be true. But we need to start think about and question our assumptions about important topics. And then if you can't answer that question yourself, like I can't remember, I don't recall where I found this information, where I got this from, then do a bit of digging and see where it leads you, and if those sources are credible or reliable or not.
Hi, I'm Miko Santos. This podcast features enlightenment discussion with professionals to explain pressing issue and provide facts about unbiased journalism, countering misinformation, and an in-depth conversation with experts. Check our newsletter as well at thefreemanchronicle.com. A recent study found that 44% of Gen Z consumers say they bought something because of the influencer's suggestion, compared to 26% of general population. People trust and believe what influencers say because they seem real and likable. Because of this, their suggestions have a lot of weight. However, these suggestions aren't always right and can be harmful. TikTok is full of dangerous beauty and health trends that are pushing by influencer do-it-yourself video. On today's episode, we're talking to Dr. Torgeir Alete, Senior Lecturer in Marketing at RMIT University. Dr. Alete research investigates social and relation aspect of consumption choices and behavior, including peer learning between young adults as well as consumer learning within family. He is known for his contribution to the field of marketing with a focus on consumer-related topics. He has published several books and articles mainly related to consumer socialization and social learning process. Let's welcome Dr. Alete of RMIT University. Hello, good morning, Doctor.
Good morning to you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for your time. What are some of the risks and ethical concern associated with influencers on social media platform, and how do this issue impacted the society and their followers?
Okay, I just wanted to start from the beginning and sort of like some of the reasons why influencers are so popular. An influencer on social media can quite often feel more relatable to people than more sort of boring, perhaps expert. So influencers often present as just being a regular person. I'm just like you. I'm just like everyone else, and therefore they present it as being someone that is easier to relate to, and that makes them be perceived as more authentic, and therefore we have a greater tendency to trust in what they say and the information they deliver. However, many influencers may not be particularly skilled or trained or have any appropriate expertise to talk about the topic that they present on, and that can be problematic because the delivery may be appealing, it may be charismatic, but the content is not actually based on insight and expertise in the field that the influencer supposedly present on. So that's one side of it. The other side of it is, especially when we're talking about short video format, which is typically TikTok or now also YouTube Shorts, is that you can only cover so many details in a short video clip. So you need to, if you're talking about something very complex, like conflict in the Middle East, then you can't cover that. You can't tell people what that conflict is all about within a couple of minutes in a TikTok video. So you need to take enormous shortcuts to get to perhaps a very cheap point on something that deserves more depth in order for people to understand. So those are two critical problems with one with influencers in general, and the other in particular with the channel.
So yeah, thank you for that. So you're saying, Dr. Aletta, because on a short size bit platform, you cannot explain the totality of disinformation and misinformation.
That's a little bit outside of my area as a marketing academic, but important distinctions could be made between looking at the intent of the person, of the content that's being delivered. If it is if the person presenting know that they're presenting false information and does so purposely in order to make a point, as opposed to being ill-informed and just spreading things that are unintentionally inaccurate, which can happen in any level of journalism as well, for that matter.
Thank you for that. So this is I have another question. This is a little bit um maybe some people will think it's a little bit controversial, but we're talking about this in the sense of on academic side and based on the research and learning that we have. What are the potential consequence of influencer promoting conspiracy theories and extremist ideologies to their followers?
Well, I guess, as I said initially as well, that influencers quite often present as charismatic. They present as relatable because they are not part of the cultural elite or whatnot, which for some reason people at universities tends to be boxed into, and therefore they can continue to undercut knowledge and undercut advances in research in any field, and that so it can lead to further erosion of trust in society's institutions, such as a university, in exchange for more media persona or influences found on social media channels. And if those influencers are not informed on the topics they present about, then that can be quite problematic.
Thank you for that. So the next question: have influencer action, because sometimes they post about anything, they do opinion on anything. What is you said? What is the ethical concern does this raise?
Well, I guess that part of the problem is that you, especially if you're a professional influencer, then you're operating within a very, very different economic framework and with a very different business logic than what I would operate under as an academic. So what makes your bread and butter in that space is the number of likes and views that you get. So you need to say things and do things that put food on the table, and that is to get people to view your content. That is your currency, because that's how the platforms are incentivized. It's the size of your audience and the likes that you get. And so we know what works and what people will click on. The term clickbait is very well known, and therefore, it is in the influencer's interest, best interest, quite often, to be edgy and go a little bit further with what you say, and push points. If they are not entirely true or sometimes completely false, then as long as people view it, that puts the food on the table for that influencer, and so there's an inbuilt incentive for that to.
Thank you. In connection with that, Dr. Alete, is that in what way can influencer influence their audience purchasing decision, like, and consumption habit?
Yeah, those are very common ways that influencers work. And so in my area of marketing, working with influencers is increasing a lot in popularity, because it's much easier for consumers to sort of get to that level of trust and understanding in a product that they consider buying, when it's presented by someone that's appears to be authentic, and appears to be just a regular consumer, just like them, and so that's it's a very powerful marketing tool that's been growing a lot in popularity. But we also see a like the whole influencer space in marketing is growing, and it's splitting up into different sort of categories of influencers. You have your big celebrities that's got a big audience, loads of followers, but their perception of insights and knowledge may be more sort of general. They can reach a lot of people, but they have less sort of direct connections with them. And then you have micro influencers that are more niche, that perhaps operate within a certain geographic region, or that have a certain level of interest and expertise in a more sort of narrow field, and then talks about that more directly, and then therefore have a more stronger connection with their audience.
Is there any danger of that? Because, as you said, influencer can influence audience, but if they are providing, say, purchasing like a product, and they say it's okay, but how do we make sure that they provide accurate and responsible information to their followers?
Yes, no, there's that's a good question. It's a very complex question as well, because I think we need to remember that this is a relatively new media, and this whole space is, or at least has been, completely unregulated, and regulation is now coming in. If you sort of think about it in contrast to more established media forms like television, we know and we accept that it needs to be a vignette that says, now this is an ad break, and you need to signpost for consumers of that TV show that now you're watching advertisements, now you're watching the program, and you can't just sort of, there's rules and regulations for product placement on television and what you can and cannot do. In a social media space, that has been a complete Wild West. You can do whatever you want. But regulation is now sort of coming in there and perhaps catching up a little bit. So if consumers don't know, to what extent they're being sold a product, or is this influencer just reviewing this product because they love that product category and they just want to inform, they just want to help, or are they actually being paid and sponsored by the company to say those things? Consumers have a right to know those things, and in the past we were protected by codes on television, at least, to know the difference there. So that needs to catch up, and it is catching up as well. So laws and regulations are coming in this space from many countries around the world, including Australia. So that's just from the very basis that, and research in this area have also, long before regulations came in, has already confirmed that it has always been in the influencer's best interest to disclose whether content is sponsored. So it's better, the influencers increase their trust if they upfront say whether or not they received products for free, or whether or not they were paid by a business to make certain claims about products. So any sort of dishonesty from or purpose hiding of information from an influencer is not good for the influencer. The audiences will trust them less, and that's sort of been research has shown that before regulations sort of starting to catch up. So that's been quite obvious.
Do you reckon that this social media platform owners do some regulation on their end about this information, disinformation, or different fake news, or is that, do you think
Yeah,
they
I think what seems to have been happening in this space is that the social media platforms won't necessarily do that regulation unless they are compelled to do so, either by threat of legal actions or because their rapid decline in popularity as a result. But I have not seen them being proactive. Rather, the process has been, because TikTok is new kid on the block, but YouTube's been around for a very long time, and if we're going to focus on video content, and the approach was, let the algorithms run amok first, and let the algorithms decide what content's going to go up and down, and then so it was basically we were all part of a massive social experiment. And then later, when there's stories come out of particularly unsavory content being pushed to the top and being promoted on the platform, and then that creates negative publicity, and then the company goes in and so like, oh yeah, we can remove this content, and or they try to tweak their algorithms to not promote certain types of content. But those things. Those things obviously is expensive. It costs. You need human moderators, and you need more sophisticated computer models to improve those algorithms. The cheap and basic recommendation approach with the algorithms is sort of how it started.
So you're saying about the algorithm. What is your thought about artificial intelligence is using this to spread disinformation? Have you heard about that?
Yeah, look, it's just sort of very basic how these platforms work is that the purpose of the platform is to maximize the time that users spend on the platform, and quite often we sort of conflate things and assume that there is some conspiracy behind it, or that there's some nefarious agenda that wants us to do certain things. But it like most of the time, these algorithms are just blind to all of that. It's just a matter of how can we maximize people to the amount of time that they spend on the platform. So every time you click on a video, the algorithm learns a little bit more about you. So it's a matter of getting as much information about you as a user as possible, to know a lot about you and know what you like, know what you click on, know how long you would watch that particular content. And if you didn't take the bite there, you only watch a little bit, and try to give you something else, and then the more you use the platform, the more it knows about you, and the harder it then becomes for you to resist that continuation of staying engaged with the platform. And that's what sort of makes it dangerous in a sense, because you lose that control. But you get the illusion of being in control because I clicked on that, I like that content, I wanted to see that, but it's the way that it works is actually the other way around. You're not in control. The algorithm knows what you want to see before it's recommended to you.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Aliti. So, we're talking about TikTok, old video based TikTok, YouTube. How about, do you have experience on, how about the audio side of thing like podcasting? Is this similar on doing this sort of thing? Because recent
Yeah,
studies said
it
that, sorry, so recent studies said that podcasting is one of the trusted media form as well.
yes, it is, and you're right, and it does work in a sort of similar way in terms of being recommended other podcasts based on the podcast that you're watching. Uh, and the thing with podcasts is that we are so busy these days with our devices most of the time, and that mobile phone is with us constantly, and we constantly stare at that tiny screen. The only times we put our phone down is when we are engaged in some sort of activity where we cannot look at our mobile screen, like sleeping, but or other things like when you're driving, you can't stare at your mobile screen. Although some people still do, but you have to put that phone a little bit aside, or if you're out exercising or stuff like that. And that's where podcast really comes in. It's when your hands are occupied, so you can't hold the phone, so then you can listen, uh, and that is becoming now a very important media, because we are so distracted on the phone, because everything is on there. We have so many different apps, and every of those apps, and including what we're looking at within the platform we are, but also any other app that's on your phone, is in constant competition for your attention. When you're exercising, driving, washing the dishes, and you can't, like, then all of that competition is gone, and so you can listen to a podcast, and the audience is then more captive. So it's easier then to influence people, because you have more of their attention than what you would otherwise have. So that's sort of part of the reason why podcasts are then becoming more popular. But I mean, on those platforms, you have the exact same problems with influences that you have on other media, and that is, do they actually know what they're talking about? What is their qualifications to discuss these topics? And quite often, they don't have proper qualifications and accreditations to talk about and to discuss in detail the topics they talk about, and that becomes a problem. And then we get further spread of misinformation.
Thank you for that. So, YouTube, TikTok, podcasting, it's also things online on this danger. If you don't know what are you talking about, Dr. Oleta, it's what ethical guidelines and regulation, if we have, are in place to address the danger associated with influencers, and how effective are they in ensuring responsible influencer behavior?
Yeah, I'm not a legal scholar, so I got to be careful what I say about that. But I think um, there's a lot of catching up to do in order to be effective in this space, because it's, anyone can start a podcast, and and these platforms are made accessible for a reason, so that anyone can create content, and it's hard to, you can't regulate and stop people creating content, uh, and as we often hear from anyone that's, you know spreading particularly unsavory false narratives, if they get silenced, then the outcries about cancel culture and oversight, freedom of speech comes immediately in the aftermath of that. So it seems that we're a little bit stuck there at the moment, in terms of proper control and regulation, because these platforms, and the way this works is unprecedented. It is nothing like what we've seen before, and therefore we still haven't quite figured out how to grapple with it and how to, use this to create a better society.
Thank you for that. Before we wrap the episode for today, Dr. Alite, can you are also co-founder of Shaping Connection. Can you tell us about this?
Yeah, so when I don't teach undergraduate students digital marketing, I work on the sort of other side of things. Shaping Connections is a research program that looks at digital and social inclusions and older Australians. So it's about, there's a lot of, I suppose it's very much related to what we talk about here, and people are, afraid, they're concerned, and they have fears of using technology, digital platforms, and that fear is particularly strong in many of our older Australians, and so we're working on ways of making older people connect meaningfully on their own terms, and engage with the digital economy, and doing the things that they want to do, and not having, skills and knowledge being a barrier for them to meaningfully engage and interact with friends and family through digital means.
Thank you for that. Any parting word, Dr. Alita, for to our audience who listen this and also watching right now?
Yeah, look, I think there's, it's we need to be careful, and we need to be skeptical, perhaps, have a healthy level of skepticism to what we see and read online, and if, when you're in conversations with people and they tell you about things that, doesn't sound to be completely, factual, we need to ask people and ask ourselves as well, where did you get this information from? Where did you hear that? And because we're so bombarded with information all the time, and we hear so many things, read, see so many things, and then sometimes it's hard to just sort of, yeah, where did I get that from? Because we've heard it so many times, and things we've heard so many times, and then we just internalize it and think that, this must be true. But we need to start think about and question our assumptions about important topics, and then if you can't answer that question yourself, like I can't remember, I don't recall where I found this information, where I got this from, then do a bit of digging and see where it leads you, and if those sources are credible or reliable or not.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you, Dr. Tagir Alite. Is a senior
My
lecturer in
pleasure.
marketing and RMIT University in Melbourne. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much to our guests for today. So it's about the information that influencers are feeding to us. So even thought, as a journalist, we work hard to make objectivity and credibility the most important part of our job over time. Through journalism code of ethics, a lots of things must be in true in order to become a journalist. So not everyone can write content. They used to say that content creation, which is what they do now, had to not only produce good work but also meet a certain level of most moral standard before it could made a public. So we have a code of ethics for that. To keep lies from spreading, there need to be a clear separation between facts and opinion. Reporter and some professional content creators are the only one who follow the code of ethics these days. The vast majority of people on the internet who are now also thought as a content creator don't even know the code of ethics, which makes it impossible for fake news, which makes it possible for the fake news to spread. So, as our expert said, you need to fact check everything that you listen, that you watch through internet. Thank you so much for watching and listening for our podcast Explain Why, and see you again for another exciting episode. Thank you so much, and always keep safe. See ya.